Do you want to make your song loud but still feel dynamic? Then this video is for you. Welcome back to the Band Guide, where we use GarageBand to create professional sounding music. I'm your band guy, Colin, and today I want to tell you about kind of a secret weapon that mastering engineers use to create final, louder masters that still feel dynamic. This is a tool that I've known about for years, but really didn't understand, and the few times that I tried it years ago, I just didn't use it right, and so I made my song sound distorted instead of sounding better. But this tool is super powerful, and use it properly, it can make your song louder while still feeling dynamic. So in this video, I'm actually going to explain an extremely simple way to use this tool. So even if you're a beginner, as long as you're careful, you can use this tool to create a louder, final, mastered version of your song. Now, this video is going to go hand in hand with my mastering video that I've done before. I'll link to that above here. So if you haven't seen that, go check that out. That explains the overall process for mastering. And I always say I'm not a mastering engineer. I'm more of a mix engineer and artist. Historically, mastering is kind of its own field. It's kind of a dark art that mastering engineers are really, really good at. But I have mastered some songs over the years for clients who needed it, and I've learned a lot about it. It's definitely something that I'm very interested in and passionate about. So this video is really going to help you out. Let's go ahead and jump in and look at this tool inside GarageBand. All right, so the tool that we're talking about today is what's called a clipper. And it is just that. It's literally going to clip off the top of our mix. Now, that sounds bad, but I promise it's actually in a good way. And this way, it's going to be extremely helpful for us. It's going to help our mix sound and feel louder while still feeling dynamic. It's really, really key. So to understand this tool, what we need to talk about is what's called digital zero. How do you make your mix loud? And this has to do with getting as close to digital zero as we can. So digital zero is where things can't go past. If you go past digital zero, it just gets cut off digitally, and that distorts in a very nasty sounding way. It does not sound good. So what we need to do is try to get close to digital zero. If we want our song to sound loud, we got to push it up closer to digital zero, but without actually passing it. And so we need to contain the mix up near digital zero. And we've done that already in the last video that I mentioned, in the mastering video. So go check that out if you haven't already. In that, with a limiter. Our limiter sets a line at, in our case, we set it to, let me pull it up here, to -0.5. Now, I've learned since then Spotify has changed their standards. They actually ask that you do -1. So let's go and change it down to -1 for us. So -1, meaning that's just 1 decibel below digital zero. So digital zero is here. We're just coming down just a little bit below that. And then we're going to push up our mix towards that. And what the limiter does is it doesn't let any sound go past now -1. If it tries to, it turns it down really quickly. It's like a little volume fader that just super quickly turns it down. And so we've contained the dynamics up at the top of our mix where they're not going to cross over and hit digital zero and get digital distortion and sound bad. They're just going to really quickly turn down and be fine. But the issue with the limiter is that it is doing that. It's turning it down really quickly. So if you go 4 decibels past -1 on a limiter, it's going to turn it down in the same way, right? So the further you try to push into a limiter, the more pumping you're going to get. So in that video, I couldn't really go past +4 because I started to hear a little bit of pumping. Let me show you what that sounds like. I'm going to really exaggerate it here. When I drive this in and make it pump a lot, check this out.
Oh, I'll take you higher, higher.
Feel it's like not good, right? So we cannot just drive more signal into our limiter if we're trying to make a louder final master. So what clipping allows us to do is just clip off the big peaks at the very top of our mix. That way the limiter isn't hearing those and reacting to those. It's going to clip them off first so that then there's less being driven into that limiter, that less it's going to be pumping, right? So we're going to use this standard clip. Now this is a great one from Sir Audio Tools. It's called Standard Clip. I think it's 27 bucks at the time I'm filming this video. A lot of pros use this one. It sounds great and it just works, and it gives you a lot of great visual information. So I'll demonstrate with this one first, but I'll also show you a free one in just a minute that works as well. A quick overview of what we have here. Our main tool that we're using is just this one fader. So we're just going to be bringing this down here, and you'll see that in a second. But we also have a visual indicator. As I bring this down, you see that fader point. That's saying that it's going to clip off anything past that point now. Then down here we have a visual of what the actual points, our waveform in our audio looks like. And then over here we have a couple other faders to adjust the output gain. Over here we have, on the front side, we have one that adjusts the input gain. So if we want to drive more volume into it, we could do that over there. But all you really need to focus on in this video is this clip fader bringing this down. That's all I want you to worry about when you're using this plugin. And then we're going to be really watching over here to see how much clipping is happening. So I've put this before the limiter. So if you're doing this in the mastering process, I would do this after EQ and compression. I then do clipping and then limiting. So do this before you do your limiting. And then if you're adding it later, just insert it before your limiter in your plugin list on your song here. Okay, let's play this a little bit. And as I bring this fader down, you'll see that it's indicating clipping, but it's showing some red here on what is getting clipped off.
Take you higher, higher, oh my love. Higher, higher,
A little bit much right there.
oh, take you higher.
So I can see I'm just barely trimming off the very, very top here. We can see it up here as it's going past that point. It's just keeping it there. You can see it here. This is how much it's turning it down. Now, the cool thing is you probably didn't hear that at all. If I go back here, if I turn this off and then I engage it, it doesn't really change the sound of it at all. We still perceive it the same. If you pay attention to that snare, the snare still sounds the same. That is the key here, is that it's going to let that still feel very dynamic. But I've now clipped off all of that in our source. I brought this down to this point, negative 6.4. Now we could play with this and see if we can get it even further without really hearing it. Let's see if we can do that. But also I want you to notice as I bring it really low, you're going to start hearing it distorted. So if I exaggerate it here, not good. Remember I said I didn't used to understand how to use it and I made it sound bad? You can definitely make it sound worse with this. But if you're careful, you can bring it down until you're just clipping off just enough. And when you're starting out, if you're not sure, lean on your visual indicators. Just clip off the biggest peaks. Don't worry about doing more than that. Now, as I said, this one's 27 bucks, but at the end of this, I'm going to show you one that is free that you can use, and I'll show you how to use it. It's slightly different, but I've used it before. It sounds great. So now that we've trimmed this off, now we can drive more volume into our limiter here. So I'm going to go back a little bit earlier. Now I could drive this up. Let's do it while listening. And you just don't want to hear any of that pumping. I'm still not hearing it there. Now if I turn off this clipper, notice that we get that pumping. Put this back on. We don't have that pumping anymore. And notice too, pay attention to the snare here. Notice that when I turn the clipper off, the snare kind of disappears because the limiter is just squashing it. It's turning it down when we get those big spikes. But when I have this clipper on, it clips it off, and there's something about that we still perceive it as the same. We still feel the dynamics in the same way. It's really a cool, powerful tool. Check this out. Pay attention to the snare. The cat, 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 cat. Snare disappears a little bit. It's subtle, but it makes a difference. This between the pumping and the dynamic, the feel of the dynamics, a clipper is huge. Okay, so let's look really quickly at that free one that I mentioned. This is called GSAT Plus. This is one by TB Pro Audio that I really love as well. I've used it before on mixes. I'm going to hit peak here. So the first thing to know is that we have visual meters up here that show us how loud the signal is. That's really important. We'll talk about how to use that in just a second. In this case, we're not going to use anything down here at all. We're only going to focus on this one knob. This is our clipping knob. And so what we're going to do is we change the meter. If you just click where it defaults to VU, we're just going to change this to peak so we see the loudest points of volume in this mix. And what I'm looking for here is how loud does it get at its loudest point. Now, I typically say to mix no louder than -3 in the loudest point of your song. It looks like I let myself slip a little bit here and I got up to about -1.4. It could also be this EQ and compression that I'm adding here. I'm just going to chalk it up to that. But I'm still not going past 0, so we're still safe here. So I can see that my loudest point is -1.4. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to use this clipper to bring this down. So this is just a knob, and as I turn this down, I just want to bring this down so I'm clipping off, because this is a dynamic song, maybe 3 to 4 decibels maximum. So I see it's 1.4. I'm going to start at just 4.4 as my starting point and see if I hear that. And we'll see this will light up if it is clipping at any point. You see it clip on there.
Higher, higher, oh, I'll take you higher, higher, oh my
Bring it down a little
love.
further.
Higher, higher,
Still works okay for me.
I'll take you.
So 3 to 4, maybe 5 decibels past whatever your peak point is there. And then now what we'll see is that if I click this to reset it, now this is never going to go past negative 6.6, because that's our new peak. It's never going to go past that. Now if I bring this down way too low, sounds terrible, right? So you got to find that point where it's working, where it's not clipping too much and starting to sound bad and distort, which is one reason I've been timid to bring this to this channel. Is you can ruin a mix with this, but if you're careful with it, and you're listening, and you're not doing too much, even if you just set this at some mixes, I will just set this at like -3, -2.5, just to make sure that anything that starts to go past that just gets clipped off. That way it's not doing too much, but it's not also coming down and getting in the way of anything else. Now, there's 2 more things that you need to know about either of these plugins really quickly. The first is that if you're using this for mastering, just flip on oversampling 4x. This is just going to give you a cleaner high end. Don't worry too much about it. It's kind of a complicated thing. But if you just switch this to 4x on oversampling, and then if you're using standard clip, it defaults to 4x here, or x4. Just put this on X16. If we can't go above 4x on the GSAT Plus, but we can here. Again, it's not make or break, but it just gives you a slightly cleaner high end. So 4x on GSAT Plus and 16 on standard clip. All right, and lastly, something you might be thinking, or at least I hope you're thinking, is, well, what about the Yulin loudness meter? What about our Luff score? Because in the other video I said, well, you should master to -14. Now, to be honest, this is just kind of a complicated issue, and there's not necessarily one right answer to it. I've learned more about it over the last year and a half since I made that last video, and it is true that Spotify is going to turn you down if you go past -14 LUFS. That is going to be our standard metering that we're looking for mastering. If it's past -14, they're going to turn it down. But because other platforms either turn it down differently or don't turn it down at all, mastering engineers have more or less chosen to ignore that as their standard. So while typically speaking, your mix isn't going to be louder necessarily on Spotify or one of those other platforms if you go past -14, there is kind of a feel that's going to be a little bit different, because the dynamics are more contained. You're closer to that digital zero. Even if it gets turned down more, it's going to feel a little bit louder. I said in that video as well, some people go all the way up to -6 in their masters. Now, that's super loud, but a standard of being closer to -10 to -8 on a really loud, dynamic rock song is a little bit more common. So in this, it looks like we're hitting around -9 here. And remember, this score is integrated, so it's over a few seconds. So it looks like we're now -9, -10. That's fine on a song like this. Again, it's about feel. It's about how loud does it seem and how loud does it feel. There's no quite right answer to it, but as long as you're above -14 and you're not hearing it negatively impacted by the dynamic control that you're doing, you're fine. So with standard clip, we're able to get it a little bit louder than we could with just the limiter, because we're clipping off those big peaks. So that is clipping. It is a secret weapon if you're trying to make a really loud master. Now, it's important to keep in mind, you need a master to the context of your song. A quiet piano ballad does not need to be as loud as a big rock song, right? So always have a reference song, a professional mix that you love, that you're listening to, and seeing if yours is close to it in volume as you're doing your mastering. You don't need to blow out the volume beyond the point that it needs to be. A tool like this is only really helpful if you need it. But if you're trying to make a louder master, clipping is a hugely helpful, hugely powerful tool. Now, if you are making music in GarageBand and you want it to sound professional, I want to give you something to help with that. I put together a completely free 6-step checklist to a pro mix that walks through the 6 steps that all professional mixes have and how to do them inside GarageBand. It's completely free from the link in the description below. And actually, we mix this song on this channel. You can go check it out on my channel. through this exact same process, walking through the steps in real time. So download that guide so you can use it anytime you're mixing, and go check out those videos. You can watch me mix this entire song from scratch following that process. Link in the description below for that. Before we go, I want to hear from you. What do you think of this tool? What do you think of clipping? Is this something you think you're going to try on your next master? Let me know in the comments below. If this video is helpful, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next week with another video.
One thing at a time. I can only handle one thing at a time. One thing at a time.